God gave you 100,000 watts of power, but it's up to you to put them to work. This is the John Adams Radio Show. Bringing you truth, justice, and the American way of making money. I'm John Adams. Seated firmly in the free enterprise chair, speaking directly into the golden EMR microphone, this is Excellence in Money Radio. Coming to you live from an undisclosed location in a bunker somewhere in the southeastern United States, perhaps Southern Command headquarters on beautiful St. Simon's Island, the crown jewel of Georgia's coastal empire. Thence broadcast 23,300 miles directly into outer space. This week affiliates, Satcom 5. Thence rebroadcast all across the fruited plain to our vast EMR network. 331 stations plus the island of Guam. That's just the way it is. I am thrilled to have you with us for this special edition of the John Adams Radio Show. Let not your hearts be troubled. We will solve your real estate problems today. And Merry Christmas to all of you. We are simply delighted to have you with us. And I'm still doing screen sharing. How about that? Well, let's stop doing screen sharing. And hopefully you can see me. Hi, everybody. Well, it is Christmas plus one, and we have survived. And I think we're actually going to survive another year. What a crazy year this has been. I sort of have written it off. I think, as I talk to people, everybody says the same thing, that, yes, there was real estate sales activity, but nobody seems to be finding particular bargains out there. There we go. We can't see that, Marge. Okay. I mean, I see it, but it's okay. But regardless of what has happened, regardless of anything else, on Christmas Eve, Margie and I, at 5 and at 7 p.m., we're running the sound booth at Westminster Presbyterian Church for the Christmas Eve service. And even though our pastor, out of an abundance of caution, is quarantined, and even though my mother, 95-year-old Romaine Thomas Adams, is been diagnosed positive for COVID, praise the Lord, she has no signs. And even though the election didn't go quite the way I had planned, and even though it seems like everything's going to hell in a handbasket, the reality is we all have a lot for which to be thankful. And I am. And one of the things that I am truly thankful for is for you and for your support, because without you and without your support, I would not be who I am and where I am today.
Try turning off that light, the long light.
The long light. All right. All right. Is that better?
No, that's all right.
Well, I can turn this up. We're adjusting lights here.
No, your lights are okay. I just can't get the monitor to show the TV.
Oh, okay. Well, I would vote for scrapping the monitor and turning it sideways. Anyway, all those things being said, I wish you and yours a very Merry Christmas and a prosperous 2021. And I've told this to a lot of people, but I wanted to share it with you. Through my intimate relationship with the Almighty, I have become convinced that 2021 is going to be a good year for all of us. And here's why I believe that. The first is we have 2 approved vaccines for this stupid COVID thing, and there's a bunch more on the way. Okay? And once these things start ramping up and rolling out, and they're doing it, by the way, they said, I heard them say 1 million people have been vaccinated now, which is a miracle. And of course, they said it couldn't be done. All the naysayers and unhappy people in the media kept saying, oh, this is ridiculous. We're all going to die. Well, we're not all going to die, and it's not the end of the world. And yes, 1 million people in the United States have been vaccinated, including my mother's doctor over at Emory, which is, I think, wonderful. And I'm very pleased with that. And at the same time, they're making a lot more of it, and there are new ones about to hit the market under the FDA approval. I did learn something that will make you angry. I hesitate to share this with you on the day after Christmas, but out of an abundance of caution, I'm going to share it with you anyway. Have you noticed that everything is out of an abundance of caution now? Out of an abundance of caution, I've made you a low offer on your house. Oh, no. Anyway, Pfizer, who was the first to get their vaccine approved by the FDA under Project Warp Speed, which was imposed unwillingly upon the Food and Drug Administration. Now, the Food and Drug Administration does wonderful things. And one of the things that it does is it protects us. But I don't know about you, I'm just about protected right up to here. It turns out, and I read this in a reliable source, that the doctors, the researchers at Pfizer came up with this particular solution for a vaccine for COVID-19. Guess how many months after it was first disclosed? After the virus was first analyzed, and no, it wasn't a month. It wasn't a week. It was 2 days. 2 days. So what have we been waiting for? Well, this was apparently the accelerated trials version of a process that might take, I don't know, years, up to 10 years. And so much for that. So let's talk about COVID, because I have something I do need to share with you regarding the CDC agency order. Hopefully each of you received an email this morning with a link to this, which I have in my formerly nicotine-stained hands. And it says this is an HHS CDC temporary halt in residential evictions to prevent the further spread of COVID-19. Frequently asked questions. So what we have here is a FAQ, frequently asked questions, from CDC, telling us what the order is and what it does, and giving us some further guidance. That in and of itself is not important. This was poorly written. It was poorly implemented. We all know that. and you and I are left holding the bag. All we have to have is a tenant who decides they don't want to pay rent anymore. They sign a declaration, under penalty of perjury, and they don't have to pay rent anymore. And you and I can't do anything. Well, guess what? It's not quite that bad. And the reason this document is important is that it was signed off on by none other than the United States Department of Justice. So now we have a document here that we can take to a magistrate court and say, Your Honor, the Department of Justice says this. Well, let me tell you what they say in here. And it goes on, talks about who covered people are, and
I just chatted it to you if you want to pull it up on your screen.
I do. How do I do that?
Go to Google Chat.
Go to Google Chat.
Or Hangouts, whichever you use.
I'm going to have to share my screen to do that, aren't I?
Once you pull it up, you will.
Oh, all right. Well, here. Okay. Let's get out of this and let's go to, we're going to read this together, boys and girls, so bear with me. Hey, it's the day after Christmas. Just relax. And because I want to share with you a very important part of this. Got it. So, I shared. Okay. That's it. All right. It's a PDF, apparently. Great. Let me share the screen and we'll all look at this together. Bingo. All right. And I'll increase the size of this so you guys can see it. But this is, if you have somebody who is not paying the rent, you need to print this out. It's all of 7 pages, and take it with you when you file a dispossessory warrant, because there's likely to be a young person who is a secretary at the office of the clerk of Superior Court who says, we're not accepting these. Now, most of the counties that I have inquired of are in fact accepting dispossessory warrants. So you got 2 hurdles here. The first is getting past the clerk and actually having a warrant issued. And the second is convincing the judge that you know more than he or she does, which you do. But let's forge ahead because I want you to see this. And I'm going to scroll down here. And all of this that we're looking at, you already know. How does someone use this protection? Is there oh, by the way, the advocate, the quote, the so-called, the self-described low-income housing advocates are saying that the order didn't go far enough and that you and I should be required to inform our tenants that they can file this declaration, and we should have to give them copies and teach them how to do it. All right, this is important. Can I look on page 4 at the bottom? Can I still be evicted for reasons other than not paying full rent? The answer is yes. You may still, remember this is from the Department of Justice now. And this is a little touchy because this is the federal government telling the state and the county and even the municipality what has to happen. Can I still be evicted for reasons other than not paying full rent? Yes, you may still be evicted for reasons other than not paying full rent or making a full housing payment. The order does not prevent you from being evicted for. This you need to have in writing so that you can show a secretary at the clerk's office why you are filing and keep referring to it as the Department of Justice guidelines. 1, engaging in criminal activity while on the premises. Folks, Everybody you and I know engages in some criminal activity every day. How about speeding? How about parking off of the driveway? I mean, all of these things are criminal activity. Number two, threatening the health or safety of other residents. Let's say you have a tenant who, you've got a no smoking building, and the tenant continues to smoke outside. The smoke goes in the window. It is potentially harming other residents. That has to do with health and safety, and you can evict someone for that. Okay? Or they drive too fast when pulling onto the property, or they park their car in a, who knows. Number three, damaging or posing an immediate or significant risk of damage to property. Every tenant I have poses a significant risk of damage to my property every day. I realize I'm stretching things out a little bit here, but we're talking about getting into court. Now, how about this? Number four, violating any applicable building code, health ordinance, or similar regulation relating to health and safety. That's pretty broad. Okay. And here's number five. This is great. Violating any other contractual obligation of a tenant's lease other than the timely payment of rent or similar housing-related payment, including non-payment or late payment of any fees, penalties, or interest. So, excuse me, if you have a lease, which you should, and your lease is comprehensive, which it should be, and it has a list of things that are violations, which it should, and they do any of those things, you can evict them. This does not say they have a right to cure. It simply says they can be evicted for reasons other than not paying full rent. And this is from the Department of Justice. Now, it gets better from here. I just want you to understand this is very important, okay? Blah, blah, blah. How do people find government assistance? What types of property are covered? Forget all that. What is CDC's legal authority for issuing this order? I thought I sort of enjoyed this because I read the Constitution regularly, and there's no mention of the CDC in it or their legal authority for issuing an eviction ban. But why did they issue this order? Do landlords have to make their tenants aware of the CDC order and declaration? No, you are not required to do it. And if I were you, I would say you don't know anything about it. Okay. Let's see. What can a landlord do? Here we go. This is at the bottom of page 6. All the good stuff in this FAQ is at the bottom of the pages, 4 and 6. Look at this. What can a landlord do if a tenant has declared that they are a covered person under the CDC order, but the landlord does? That's what it says, does. It does. The landlord, I'm going to say, does not believe. There's a little typo there. Does not believe that even though they've made a declaration, okay, they've given you the piece of paper, they've signed it under penalty of perjury, and you're noticing that they're going to get their nails done. I mean, they're doing all kind of stuff. They've got plenty of money to go out and eat and keep their car and their everything, but they're not paying you a penny in rent. And so guess what? The order does not, what can a landlord do if a tenant has declared they are covered under the order, but the landlord does not believe the tenant actually qualifies? Here's the answer. This was agreed to by the Department of Justice. This will get you into court, and if you get into court, you're probably going to win. The order does not preclude a landlord from challenging the truthfulness of a tenant's declaration in any state or municipal court. The protections of the order apply to the tenant until the court decides the issue, as long as the order remains in effect. Now, some people said to me, wait a minute, John, today's December 26th, and this thing expires December 31st. Well, hey, it's going to be extended. Trust me. If it's not extended, something will be put in place to prevent you. And frankly, I'd like this to be extended if they're going to, because at least we know now that we can go into court and challenge the veracity of the tenant's declaration. Now, these, as I said earlier, the so-called advocates, the low housing advocates or housing advocates, the renters' rights organizations, are of the opinion that the declaration should be self-proving, that they've had to sign a statement under penalty of perjury. Well, what are the charges for perjury? Nothing. And when was the last time somebody got, for crying out loud, Bill Clinton was convicted of perjury and he continued to serve as president of the United States? Nobody cares about perjury. And so we have this protection now. It is agreed to by CDC, by Health and Human Services, and most importantly, the Department of Justice. And the order does not preclude a landlord from challenging the truthfulness of a tenant's declaration in any state or municipal court. So basically what this is saying is, yes, there's a protection for the landlord, but for the tenant, but the landlord still has the right to challenge the tenant in front of a judge and get some sort of equitable relief. Now, let me tell you what's going to happen. Studies have shown that if somebody contacts you and says, I can't pay the rent, and you say, I'm sorry, you'll have to pay the rent, and they say, well, will you work with me? And you say, yes, we'll work with you. We'll try to work something out. And they say, what about this CDC order? And you say, I'm sorry, I'm just not familiar with it. Which you have no obligation as a landlord to proactively bring up the CDC order or explain it to these people, except to explain the point that the order does not relieve them of the obligation to pay you rent. Okay? And the studies have shown that only about 1 in 8 tenants is going to actually go to the trouble of finding the document, reading it, trying to understand it, and then filing it with you. And if they do, and if you get them, if you get the clerk of court to issue a summons, a dispossessory summons, telling them that they have to answer within 7 days, seven days, the majority won't answer. They think they're covered, and even though they are covered, they still have to obey the orders of the court. And a dispossessory warrant in Georgia, which is issued from either magistrate's court or state court or any court of original jurisdiction, more than likely it'll be in a magistrate's court, that summons tells them that they are ordered to appear in court on a certain date at a certain time in a certain location. And if they don't do that, you win automatically and you will get a writ of possession. Okay? And so I'm just telling you, if you've got tenants now who are not paying rent and you have reason to believe that they could pay something, I mean, I'm hearing from people who are saying my tenants are $8,000 behind on their rent. They haven't paid anything. Get these people into court and explain to the judge that you simply, based on their actions and their behaviors, you do not believe that their declaration was truthful. Now, at this point, it all depends on the judge, doesn't it? And you're going to get some judges who, you know, well, we're all having a hard time right now, and I'm just going to rule in favor of the tenant here because we've got this order. Well, this is when you bring out the CDC, Department of Justice frequently asked questions, and point out that you have a right under first the Constitution and second under the frequently asked questions from the Department of Justice to challenge the truthfulness, and you'd like the court's indulgence. Okay? So, oh, by the way, guess what? The penalties against you for, what are the penalties for a landlord, owner of a residential property, or other person with legal right to pursue an eviction or possessory action violating this order? In other words, this is what you could be charged with. Several laws say that a person who violates the order may be subject to a fine of no more than $100,000 or 1 year in jail or both. Great. Just $500,000 per event. So I don't think you have to worry much about that. But anyone who falsely claims to be covered under this order by attesting to any material information which they do not believe to be true may be subject to criminal penalties. And I would simply include this in all my communications. And that's all of this. And this is what I wanted to share with you this morning. I think this is a significant breakthrough, and at least there are a couple things, and we're going to have a shortened version of the program today because it's a day after Christmas. But I did want to share this with you, and I did want to bring to your attention that this was a gift from the Department of Justice. I do not think going forward we are going to have the same level of friends at DOJ that we have had for the last several years. This new administration is going to be much more, how can I say this, tenant friendly, and less likely to enforce a landlord's right. I hope I'm wrong, but I have no reason to think otherwise. But at least between now and when a new Attorney General comes in, we have a piece of paper that has been signed off on by the Department of Justice. The other thing to remember is you are not required to renew a lease. So if your lease comes up and these people aren't paying you, just tell them they got to get out. Tell them they either have to pay you the rent or get out. And you can file a proceeding against tenant holding over. That's not a violation of the order. They don't get to stay there forever. You can also put them, if your lease has expired or is about to expire, you can notify them that, and assuming they're paying rent, but you know, they've already brought up the issue of the declaration and how much trouble they're having. You can, if you'd like, put them on a month-to-month basis. And that would require both you and them to renew on a monthly basis, first day of every month. Your lease that you currently have probably makes reference to what happens on the date of termination if nobody notifies the other one. So don't let that sneak up on you. You may be, under your lease, you may be required to give them 30 days notice or 60 or however many it says. As long as there is a lease that addresses the issue, the state requirement of 60 days in the absence of a lease does not apply to you. Okay? So you could modify your month-to-month agreement simply to say that either party may give the other party notice 7 days prior to the new date of termination or something like that. And that puts you at least in the driver's seat of being able to get your property back and start generating some revenue. And I think that's very important. Real quickly, and if you have any questions about that, send me an email, or you can put them here in Q&A. I think I've already got some Q&As here. Let's see. Yeah, let's go take a look real quick at Q&A. How much would it cost to go to court over this? Shirley, it varies by county. I think in DeKalb it's $104, and that pays for both the processing and the sheriff or the marshal, in the case of DeKalb County, the marshal going and serving the warrant or the summons. And that's where you're very likely just to get a tack and mail. But there is, I think, great benefit in having a man or a woman in a very tight spandex uniform driving a police vehicle with blue lights on it, pull up in front of your house and knock on the door and say, you are required to come to court to answer this charge. And the charge is you're not paying your rent. And that shakes people up. That lets them know you're not kidding. And so to me, it's $104 that's well spent. I don't know of anything else that gets the same level of reaction as going ahead and filing for a dispossessory warrant. And for a while, we actually had clerks of court that were just saying, no, we're not accepting any. You can't do that. But they did because there was no guidance. Now we have guidance. And it's going to be up to the judge. But my point is, if you can get in front of the judge, there's a very good chance that you'll win. There's a very good chance that the tenant either won't show, or they think they're exempt under the declaration or the CDC order, and you'll win. And once you get a writ of possession, you should be able to enforce that, unless you live like in someplace crazy like City of Atlanta. Lee, can you send the link so I can print, please? Yes. Lee, go to realestatecoffeebreak.com/CDC. realestatecoffeebreak.com/CDC. And it should be right there. Where do we find this document from the DOJ? Remember, this is an FAQ. And so what you're looking for is, one, you can get it at realestatecoffeebreak.com/CDC, or I'm going to try it right now. Let's try it together and see if we can't find it. If you go to Google and type in CDC DOJ agency eviction order FAQ. Can everybody see that? Good. And I'm just going to I'm going to enter that into Google and let's see what happens. Eviction. Here it is, the second one. CDC eviction order FAQ released. Right here's the next one. CDC issues eviction ban FAQs. HHS and CDC answer FAQs regarding. So it is all over the place. Got it? So if you just click on one of these, the key here is I think we're searching for FAQ, and I'd sure love for you to have one of these. So, and all of these have here. This is, I don't know what leading age is, but a resident declaration, timing, emergency rental assistance. Here, the FAQs are available online here. So if you click on that, let's see where it takes us. Bingo, there it is. So it's all over the place. If you can't find it, let me know and I will try to get it for you. I mean, you can go to a realestatecoffeebreak.com. I want to see if they fixed the, all right, look at this. Here we go. The order does not, okay, they fixed the typo. That's good. What can a landlord do? The order does not preclude a landlord from challenging the truthfulness. Okay? So that's good. And one more question. What if it's a lease purchase option or owner financing? That's a great question, Faye. Let me think about that or Shirley asked that question. Shirley, if it is a lease purchase, it depends on how it is structured. The way that I do it is you have a standalone lease over here. Let me stop screen sharing for just a second. If I can figure out how to do that, and I can't. Stop sharing. All right, good. The way in the lease option material that I use and that I outline in detail in my book on lease purchase, lease to own, I have a standalone lease, and then there is a standalone contract, and they have an option if they fulfill certain conditions in the lease, then they have an option to purchase the house under certain terms and conditions. Consequently, the lease would be in full force and effect up until the moment they purchase the house. The lease is what grants them possession of the property until they bought it. They have no right of possession otherwise. So the lease would control under my purchase option. Under owner financing, that is entirely different. If they have purchased the house, then it's in title if title is in their name, if title has transferred, and you are now holding not title to the property, but you hold a security deed. Okay, you don't have an ownership interest anymore. You have what's called a security interest. And if they stop making payments on the loan, you have a right to foreclose. The CDC agency order has nothing to do with mortgages. See, that's what I said all along, is that why didn't the CDC just go ahead and say, well, landlords don't have to pay their mortgage. Let's have a mortgage ban. And let's have an interest ban. And let's have a ban on taxes and insurance. Why not? If the CDC can tell tenants they don't have to pay rent, surely they can tell me I don't have to pay my taxes. Who cares if DeKalb County doesn't get their money? It doesn't bother me. So much for that. Real quick, let's see if there's any more here. But I hope that clarifies that a owner financing situation would be very different. Fayette says, how would a tenant be affected if you put the property up for sale? Can you give them 60 days vacant due to sale? No. Fayette, the lease everywhere. This just goes back to English common law, and the lease goes with the land. So if you have signed, let's say, a 2-year lease with somebody, and you decide to sell it, you can sell it all day long. But the new owner has to step into your shoes and fulfill the responsibilities under the lease. And so the sale would be considered subject to the lease. If it's in the lease that you can give them 60 days notice, yes, you can give them notice, but typically you can't just give somebody notice on a lease. The whole purpose of a lease is to lock somebody in for a specific period of time. And there are some leases I've seen that have a bilateral notification and termination clause, but they're really not much of a lease, are they? Okay? So much for that. And then if you already have a dispo filed for non-payment, can you file a second time for tenant holding over after lease expiration? I'm not an attorney, but my initial reaction would be yes. I don't see any reason you couldn't have multiple actions going on against the same person for multiple infractions. So, for example, if they were holding over beyond the lease and growing marijuana on the back deck, which I've had happen, those are two entirely separate issues. Now, you could combine them into one, but if you had already filed a dispossessory for illegal activities and it had gotten nowhere, you could go ahead and file for tenant holding over and seek possession under that and see how far you get. But I'm not an attorney. I can't give, I'm not trying to give you legal advice here. So that's about where we are, boys and girls. I think this is important. Let me just, because we've got a lot more people that have joined us now, but what I have here is the HHS CDC residential eviction ban, frequently asked questions. And you can get, it's 7 pages, and you can get a copy of this. And in a nutshell, what it says is that you have a right, and what the importance of this is that this document was issued by Health and Human Services, CDC, and most importantly, the Department of Justice. That's the FBI. That's the United States Attorney. Okay? And the key here is you now have a document that you can use to help you get a dispossessory warrant filed in counties where they're reluctant to take any dispossessories. I think those are pretty few, but if I were you, I wouldn't go into a clerk's office to file for a dispossessory unless I had this in my hand with a copy for the clerk and highlighted pages 4 and 6 that says you have a right to, on page 4, it says, can I still be evicted for reasons other than not paying full rent? Yes, you may still be evicted. So at the bottom of page 4, it clearly, the Department of Justice has answered that question. And then at the bottom of page 6, what can a landlord do if a tenant has declared that they're covered under the CDC order, but the landlord does not believe the tenant actually qualifies? And it says here, the order does not preclude a landlord from challenging the truthfulness of a tenant's declaration in any state or municipal court. Okay?
Peter has raised his hand. Sorry.
You need to close your microphone, please.
I don't know how it got open.
I don't know, but it's open.
Peter
And,
has raised his hand.
okay. Well, I think we should go talk to Peter for just a minute and see what words of wisdom he has to say. And I'm going to,
Promoting him.
oh, you're promoting him. Okay, good. And it looks to me like there's some chat stuff going on.
There is a little bit.
And I'm going to move over. Oh, there's Peter Burke. Hello, Peter. How are you? Pleasure to see you. Merry Christmas to you, sir.
Thank you. You too. And to everyone out there.
Well, good. I apologize for just sort of harping on this, but I think for those of us who are landlords, this is a significant step in the right direction. I noticed that when I suggested that the CDC could declare a moratorium on mortgage payments, you don't seem very enthusiastic about that idea.
No. Why haven't they? But why haven't they is beyond me. You know, if they're doing it on rent, on landlord tenants, what's the difference?
Well, I think they would say, oh, we have a foreclosure moratorium.
Okay.
I mean, they don't, but they say they do. So anyway, hey, tell us about what's going on in the mortgage market. You come bearing gifts today.
Once in a while, I have gifts, and a couple things. I get asked questions about home equity lines of credit on rental properties, and I found a source. And if people have a question, call, text, email me, and I can direct you to a someone who's doing lines of credit on rental properties. We don't do them, but I'll make the introduction for that customer and see if they can get it. And I'd love to get their feedback as to what happens with it too.
Well, here's my question. Would this be a fixed rate home equity line of credit, or would it more likely be adjustable?
Oh, they're all variable, John, and this one's variable. And I don't remember what the index they're using or what the margin was, but it didn't strike me as being onerous.
Well, my initial thought then would be that for most people, they would be better off either refinancing, and I realize that there are costs associated with refinancing, so you don't want to refinance, just for a very short-term need, but nonetheless, why would somebody want to put a home equity line of credit on their house right now? I don't know, on their rental property. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Well, the same reason you would put it on any property. It's a revolving line of credit. So if you've got a periodic need to borrow against real estate or a rental home, use the funds to acquire something, maybe fix it up, then refinance that other property to pay back that line of credit. It sounds good on paper, and if you're disciplined enough to pay it back and keep it for its intended purpose, then why not?
Well, I can certainly see that, and in that unique circumstance, it might end up being a better deal than, say, a hard money loan,
Correct.
which would be probably a leading alternative. But real quickly, because I had promised, it's already, and I'm going to end the show early today. If people want to talk with you, by the way, I talked, a friend of ours at church just came up to me in the Intergalactic Sound booth and said, we want you to know that we're using Peter Burke to refinance our home. And I said, I'm delighted. And they said, well, everything's going swimmingly. So congratulations. And that's at least
You try
one,
hard.
Peter. That's one. Hey, if somebody has a question about any real estate lending situation, Peter, one of the things I like about you is you have been a landlord. You've worked with a lot of landlords, and you offer a sort of a sounding board for people that have financial questions, and how, a lot of times the loan and the financial arrangements contribute significantly to whether the deal is worth doing or not. And you can help somebody look at that and say, well, here are some different options. And that's one thing that I just wanted to compliment you on.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. Sometimes I give my advice and it's not welcome, and sometimes I do and it is.
Well, I'm going to give people the advice of your telephone number because it's easy to remember. 678-557-9759. 678-55. Where's your board? 678-557. You and Carl Rove, 9759. Peter, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah. Are you, if I were you, Margie and I are celebrating Kwanzaa this year. I don't know about you. We celebrate every opportunity.
Excellent. Excellent.
And we're going to celebrate this
holidays.
afternoon. We are celebrating right down to St. Simon's Island for a couple of weeks. And I was trying to get away from the cold weather. It has turned miserably cold here. As you know, we have listeners on the island of Guam. And I checked, and it's going to be 92 degrees today in Guam.
Excellent.
It's 30 degrees here. So we may have to go visit our affiliate in Guam for
Yes.
a inspection tour. But Peter Burke, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it as always. All right, boys and girls. Well, that is going to be pretty much it for today. I will remind you one more time that you can receive the your own copy of the frequently asked questions from CDC that has been signed off by the Department of Justice. If you are having difficulty getting a dispossessory in front of a magistrate in Georgia, I'd like to know about it because I'm trying to monitor this. I continue to receive calls from people saying that the courts are slowly trying to return to normal. They're trying to get caught up. And I understand. And is this going to be extended? And I don't know. My guess is yes, it will be. But all I can say to you is I told you that our number one goal for 2020 was to collect the rent and stay occupied. And that's what we pretty much have tried to do. This is worthwhile. I'm going to share a couple of things real quick, and then we'll leave.
Remind them that they can get all three of the documents at realestatecoffeebreak.com/CDC.
You can get all three of the documents, which are the declaration, the FAQ. What's the third document?
The moratorium itself.
Oh, the moratorium itself, or the ban itself. You can get that all right now at realestatecoffeebreak.com/CDC. Real quickly, I just want to get in a quick dig at my wonderful friend, Dave Ramsey, who his logic is diametrically opposed to mine. And I think the real difference is his audience is completely different than mine. I assume that you have the intelligence, at least average intelligence, and I would venture to say that my audience has far above average intelligence. And Dave Ramsey is, I call it the kindergarten school of finance, because when someone is a kindergartner, you have to teach them differently and teach them to do different things than when someone is a grown-up. For example, we wouldn't want a kindergartner rewiring a house, but we would expect an adult to use electricity in their house and understand how it works. And Dave Ramsey says you can't be in debt and win. It doesn't work. Dave, you're just wrong. Debt, used wisely, is a powerful tool for wealth accumulation. And I just would I'll invite Dave to come on and talk about it. But if that's what he wants to do, the logical solution in my eyes is to borrow to acquire things that go up in value and pay cash for things that go down in value. And here are the two most common things that people buy. I mean, there's a house that tends to go up in value, and there's a car that tends to go down in value. Do we need to get around? Yes. Should you have a car? I think it is smart to have transportation. Do you need a Hummer? No. And if you have a Hummer, more power to you. If you can afford it, that's fine. But don't put a 10-year loan on a Chevrolet and tell me that at the end of 10 years, you're going to be able to sell it and pay off what you owe. It's not going to be worth anything. Whereas a house, if you buy a house a year for 10 years, you're going to end up, well, in a pretty good place. I believe debt is like electricity. If it is used improperly, if it is not respected, if it is used willy-nilly, it can be dangerous. In contrast, if you respect debt, if you understand debt, and you literally borrow to acquire things that go up in value and try to pay cash for things that go down in value, then debt shouldn't be a problem. Okay? Used properly, with respect for its awesome raw power in a controlled manner, it can improve our lives. So much for that. It is 11:58. And that being said, I am going to bid you adieu. We're not going to have a landlord's hour. I will remind you one more time that because we seem to have a lot more people attending right now, if you weren't here for the first part of the show, we will have the replay posted this afternoon, and we'll let you know when that's up. In the meantime, go to realestatecoffeebreak.com/CDC. There are 3 documents there that you need. The most important is the FAQ, or frequently asked questions, that was agreed to by the Department of Justice. So now we have a federal document telling us that we have a right to challenge a declaration of a tenant who doesn't want to pay rent anymore. And I'm here to tell you that if we can do that, I think there's a very good chance you'll get your property back. Okay? So that's it, folks. I'm going to find our travel and music, if I can. See where I go from here. First, I'm going to stop sharing the screen. You know, you'd think I'd get better at this eventually. But no. Okay. And we advance. There's Tito in the background. He's having a fit. Well, boy, we got a lot of good things we can talk about. Next week, we're going to have a killer show. I can tell you that right now. But in the meantime, I'm going to share the screen again. No. I don't want to leave the meeting. Share the screen. Here we go. Folks, we have had a wonderful, wonderful Christmas. It's been very quiet, and I hope yours has been wonderful as well. There is a story about John D. Rockefeller, who was the kingpin at the top of the Standard Oil Company. And one Christmas day, he was working on an oil rig on Christmas. They put in a full 12-hour day, and in the middle of the day, on Christmas Day, the oil well came through, and it, went off like a geyser, and he got completely soaked in oil, and all of the guys working on the oil rig got soaked in oil. And Rockefeller said to his dying day that was the best day, best Christmas he had ever had. So I wish you and yours a very Merry Christmas, a prosperous New Year. We're going to be right here with you as we go forward. And that being said, I'm going to get us out of here. And so how do we do that? We go here, we go here, and we go here. There. All right, kids, that's a 3.0 Mark IV, the John Adams Radio Show, and this is John Adams reminding you your financial future is not a matter of chance, it's a matter of choice. Make your choice at Gilbert. So long, everybody.